I'm delighted to be bringing you today's session, which is the 5th installment in our How to Grow a Law Firm series. So this series has been running throughout 2022 and will run for the remainder of it as well. And in it, we're featuring firms and, in today's case, a legal business that are growing and scaling in unique ways. For each session, we not only feature a unique legal business, but we also hone in on a specific theme so that others can learn and think about their approach to growth as well. And in today's session, Rethinking How You Deliver Legal Services, we're actually changing things up somewhat in that we're not featuring a traditional law firm. We are instead featuring a legal services company called Amicable. So, by harnessing a unique combination of relationship and legal knowledge with tech expertise, Amicable provides online divorce and separation services that focus on the needs of the family and saves couples thousands of pounds. Since their foundation, the Amicable team have helped thousands of customers in the areas of divorce, separation and co-parenting, and have seen their team grow to 35 people. Their services have been recognised far and wide with numerous accolades to their name, including British Legal Technology Award winners in 2018 for social impact, and also being shortlisted for Clio's very own Reisman Awards for legal excellence and innovation, among many, many other awards and list mentions as well. You just need to go to their website, you'll see them all. And so joining us today from Amicable, we have Pip Wilson, co-founder and CEO. So Pip is a successful tech entrepreneur, director, angel investor, and startup mentor. Pip believes in the power of teams, the importance of diversity, and is passionate about empowering women in tech. So Pip, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Nice to be here, Geraldine.
So, as mentioned, I work at Clio, and Clio is on a mission to transform the legal experience for all. And this series is really part of that mission. Being the market leader for legal technology means that we have an added responsibility to set the tone for the next generation and to help ensure that the technology shaping legal experiences is also serving the greater good. So by providing a platform for our community to tell their stories of growth and innovations, we're hopeful others will be inspired, and together we'll make this mission a reality. And when it comes to Clio and what the product does, we won't be going into a lot of detail today. You're not going to see a demonstration of our product, but we do realise that there's lots of folks on the call who might have joined expecting to see or to hear about Clio in more detail. So for those folks, I'm just, as usual, launching a very quick poll, so you can let us know if you do want to hear more about Clio, if you want to book a demonstration, and we'll pass that information on to our team and they will reach out to you to book that. Whether you're an existing Clio customer, you might want to learn more about Clio Grow, which is our client intake solution, or you might not be using Clio at all and you want to learn just basically the basics of Clio Manage or Clio Grow. So now back to our main discussion for today, rethinking how you deliver legal services. We know that client expectations have changed drastically in the past couple of years across many sectors, and some may say the change was always coming. It was simply sped up by external factors such as the pandemic, technological advancements, and for the family industry and family law, the introduction of no-fault divorce from earlier this year in April. So who better to ask to join us to discuss legal service delivery than Pip and Amicable? So Pip, at this stage, I'd like to bring you into our discussion and learn a little bit more about your growth story and Amicable's as well. So what I'd like to do is kick off with that question of, can you tell us a little bit more about Amicable and why you and your co-founder Kate set it up?
No problem at all. Yes, so Amicable was actually founded off the back of my co-founder, Kate Daly, who you just mentioned, in her own words, kind of train wreck of a divorce, where she ended up, her and her ex ended up in a prolonged court case following a kind of couple of years of going backwards and forwards, spent a lot of money, and I think at the end came out and both felt that actually they would have been better off if they'd just taken kind of the first deal that was on the table. but instead they'd wasted kind of a couple of years and all the emotion and cost that was involved in that to get to a point where it was very difficult for them as parents to actually have any form of co-parenting relationship because the divorce had been so difficult. And so she kind of took a step back and thought, well, how did it go so wrong? And actually came to the conclusion that it was the process as much as what either of them did that had led them to that point. And the fact that it was kind of became more and more acrimonious as time went on was to do with the way that they'd done it rather than anything else. Now, Kate's background is psychology, so she retrained as a family consultant and was then helping other couples go through divorce whilst working with kind of West London lawyers in the collaborative process in an attempt to kind of keep the process on track and make things happen in a different way. We were good friends at the time. I'd actually known her while we were going through, while she was going through her divorce. And it got to a point where I'd been very much involved in a previous startup, which we then sold in 2015. And having sold that, Kate and I had a lot of discussions on, look, what you're doing is brilliant, but it's not scalable without technology. And it could help so many people, but we need that kind of technical approach in order to reach as many people as possible. And so we decided that the combination of the two of us together, with her having the kind of subject matter and the experience, and me having the kind of technology and business background, would be something that would allow us to be able to take the opportunity and go with it. So that's where we started. We intentionally started quite slowly because divorce is quite a slow concept to test and to prove and to make sure you've got a product that's right. And so for the first few years, it was very much about kind of moving things forward gradually. And as of kind of 3-4 years ago, we felt, no, this is something that definitely works, that can help a lot of people. And it's been all about kind of growing since then.
Thank you. And that's a fantastic summary and really interesting as well. Were there any challenges that stand out to you from the start to setting up, and maybe how did you overcome them?
Well, I guess the big thing that we were looking to do differently, and where, as you said at the start, we're not a traditional law firm, we are set up as a divorce services firm or legal services firm, was we wanted to work with couples. And that's because we felt that the model of having two separate people arguing on behalf of one family is needed in certain cases where it's not possible for people to negotiate, but actually for the vast majority of relationships coming to an end, especially when there are kids involved and people needed to move from parents to co-parents, it is really important to still be able to communicate. And we wanted to work with couples, so therefore we wanted to bring something different to the legal market. Now, I guess the challenges or hurdles, as per your question, are that this is a different way of doing things. And so we spent a lot of time checking that what we were doing was legal, that we weren't breaching any protected parts of the profession, etc. So we took advice from the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, we did a lot of market testing, we talked to a lot of people, and worked with some solicitors as well early on, in order to try and make sure that we were doing this in a way that absolutely was in line with a legal approach. And so was that a hurdle so much as just steps we knew we had to go through to make sure we were doing something that would work and was right for was going to kind of stand up.
What was the sentiment actually like from those you know, the SRA and from the legal service, the existing solicitors and law firms when you approached them about this?
I think it's a very good question, and I think it's been mixed. I mean, the Solicitor Regulatory Authority has been very positive actually in that they are interested in legal services moving forwards as well. So obviously in terms of checking that we're not, there's certain things that can't be done as a non-law firm. but actually a lot of things that can be done. So on the whole, there's some positivity. Yes, that's not necessarily true across the board, and there are potentially certain areas of the legal industry that feel that we are maybe encroaching on what they do. But at the same time, we've had, as time goes on, we have more and more positive conversations with firms of all sizes who recognise that there is a real demand from customers to do things in a different way. And ultimately, right from day one, we have been customer driven. So anytime we've built the technology or we've kind of modified our services or added new services, it's always off the back of customer demand and us listening to what people who we speak to on a daily basis are saying they want in terms of support and services. And that, in my mind, is kind of absolutely key, both historically in our kind of growth and also moving forwards. And we are here to provide solutions that are fit for kind of today's market.
And with that, I imagine there's a lot of education of clients and customers needed as well. Can you talk a little bit about that and like maybe some approaches you've taken, or have you seen a change since setting up?
Yeah, we've seen a change, but you're absolutely right. In the vast, when we first started, people didn't necessarily understand that there might be different ways to do divorce. So 5-6 years ago, if you got divorced, you went to see a solicitor and you did that way. That was pre the government having the online portal to kind of help people with basic divorces. That was pre a lot of other things that have changed, and certainly pre any couples services. So we have had to kind of educate to say that, yes, there is a different way of doing it. And this way is not only legitimate, but it also works. So that's been a constant discussions and kind of the way that we market and how we reach people in order to make sure that we are explaining to people, yes, you can do it this way, and this is why and how. Now, I think as No Fault Divorce has come in, and happy to kind of talk about that a bit more later as well, that we've seen that real shift in understanding, and obviously the use of technology, COVID, in terms of the move away from people necessarily kind of walking down your local high street and buying more digital services. All of these things have kind of moved the conversation forward. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's had to be that period of education that no, you can do it as a couple. It is possible, and it not only is possible, but it can be very successful.
And you've grown your team to a team of 35. So obviously things are going well. Without going through every single person on that 35, are there, or could you provide a breakdown of who is the team and what are some of the key roles?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do every kind of aspect of divorce, and we also do a lot of co-parenting work as well. So we do from financial negotiations, helping people with financial negotiations, to writing up all the legal paperwork, and as I say, some of the things around the negotiation side as well. So that means that we need to have a team that supports all of those areas. So we have a team of divorce coaches, and they have slightly varying backgrounds, but quite a few ex-family lawyers. And I say ex because they're not practicing at the moment, but they trained as family lawyers, they've worked as family lawyers, so they understand the kind of legal model back to back. But they've chosen that working with couples and working with us is something that they're passionate about. And then we also have some ex-family lawyers that do drafting and stuff as well, because obviously we need our consent orders have to pass the court. We need to make sure everything's kind of watertight on that front. But we also have people who've worked as mediators before, or family consultants, etc. So again, they're used to working with couples and they know the legal industry. So our kind of divorce coach team has a variety of background, but it tends to be that type of thing. And then obviously we have a technology team who have continually helped us to evolve our products and involve the customer experience, because that's a really key part of what we're offering. And then we have the marketing team whose job it is to explain to everyone why this is a good way forward and why this can really help you get an outcome that's kind of right for your family.
Yeah, and kudos to the marketing team. Holly, I assume, is on the line somewhere, and yeah, helped put this together as well. There was a question that came in, and I think you might have referred to it in your answer there, but how do your services differ to what a family mediator might provide, or is there similarities?
Yeah, there's similarities in that we're working with couples, but we do take quite a different approach in that we follow a process, and it's a process that we've designed and honed over the years because we know it works. So we actually take people from a starting point of haven't made any arrangements to having an agreement by following a kind of a coaching methodology to get them there. Whereas mediation obviously is much more about mediating between the discussions that the individuals are having. So there's the process part, and then the other main difference is that we are full service. So the majority of mediators don't write the consent orders, etc., which is for those who aren't in family law, is the legal document at the end of the process. Whereas we do, and we manage that all through the court as well. So we effectively avoid the need to have mediation in one place and then go and see a solicitor to write up the documents by doing that end-to-end service. And we know, I mean, the recent published success rates of mediation were about 68% of getting people to a deal. Our latest statistics of when a couple signs up for our premium service, of getting them out at the other side with a deal that they're happy with, that can then go to court and be written by a judge, is 95%. So we know our process works, and is something that we've had kind of a lot of success, and our customer testimonials kind of play to how much customers like that and feel that it works. We do also work with some mediators. So we have a service where we will just do the legal process for a couple when they've made up their own minds. So often, especially if people are on reasonably good terms, they can decide themselves how they want to split their finances. And if you've done that, the last thing you want to do is then have that unpicked, or have that then become very expensive to get through the courts. So we offer a very popular write-up service where we will take the agreements people have made. And actually we work with quite a lot of mediators on that as well. So if you have done negotiations through mediation, we can get that. We can do the legal process as part of that.
Okay. And then when it comes to the pricing and your pricing model and how you price for your services, how does that work, and how have your, like, is it very upfront? Is it a package? Yeah. Could you provide a little bit more detail on that?
All of our services are fixed price, and we make it as transparent as possible upfront what it's going to cost. So we have an intake form on a kind of a divorce diagnostics form on our website, which we've noticed has been adopted by quite a few people over similar lines. But that asks some very straightforward questions around how far you are on with your arrangements, and then we'll give you this is how much it will cost you. One of the big bits of feedback we've had from customers is that transparency is really important, and not having hidden surprises, and especially not having VAT added at the end, because customers don't think like that. They don't expect things to go up by 20% because they're used to buying in supermarkets, they're used to buying general household stuff. So it was really key to us that anything that you were told, that's what you paid and that's what you were expecting to pay. And the only time you would kind of change between packages is if you needed extra. So if you think you've got an agreement and then as it comes to writing up, you realise you've missed something or there's something that you really need to discuss, then you can upgrade to have some coaching, for example, but you're not, that's very transparent as to why you're upgrading and what you're getting. It's not it's not coming as a surprise or being done at an hourly rate.
Okay, that's really interesting. I think that's probably a big differentiator then between yourself and a lot of typical law firms out there then.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a rise in the market for more fixed price divorces. So we're starting to see it, but it's not the norm, as you said. It is, but it's something we felt was fundamental right from the start.
And you referred to it earlier, the big change that came to the industry in April 5th or 6th. How did that introduction of no fault divorce, like how has it impacted amicable, and have you seen the impact yet?
Well, I mean, we've been campaigning for the change in law for years, and it's absolutely the right thing to happen. The fact that the conversations we used to have with people where they were saying, no, we're on reasonably good terms, we just want to move forwards, we need to sort out all our finances, and be like, okay, well, you have to start by blaming your partner. And it just wasn't great. It didn't start things off on a good way at all. So it's something we've been absolutely campaigning for, and we think it's a really positive change because it's already removed a lot of blame and recrimination from the kind of legal process. We are seeing a lot of couples were waiting to use the new law, and therefore there was kind of a big rush of people starting to begin with. Over time, I think it will even out, and that's shown by what's happened in other countries that have brought in no fault divorce. Removing blame doesn't make more people divorce, it just makes it a better experience for those that are divorcing. So temporary uplift maybe, but that's not going to be kind of a big thing ongoing. I guess what's very interesting is because there was a 20-week waiting period, we are just getting next couple of weeks, we'll start to get to the first time that those people who started in April can then move forwards to the next stage. So there's still quite a lot of unknowns about how that process will work. But ultimately, we've seen it as very positive because we've seen the concept that it's easier to have those conversations with people about doing it in a more amicable, less kind of blame-filled way, because they're not being battled by the legal industry to do that.
There's a couple of questions kind of coming in here from folks that are outside family law and outside of that area with regards how to potentially take this concept and put it into place for, say, immigration or commercial. Any thoughts on that? I suppose you probably can't get into the specifics of it, but the concept around what you did.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the thing with family law obviously is that you are working with a couple, and that's why almost the concept of having two separate solicitors for the same family becomes more strange if you think about it in a way. It's like ultimately if you think of the family pot as a pot, you are dividing that pot. So in theory, you should want to maximize what is in that pot for both of you, especially if you have children involved. And we actually have very few people who say, I'd rather the courts or the lawyers or something get it than my ex. Occasionally, but very few. It's slightly different with things like immigration, if it's one person with effectively against the government, etc., because you can't do that in the same way. I do, however, think in commercial and lots of other areas that going for a more negotiated solution rather than a legal battle, and we have looked at things like arbitration and mediation in other industries to see how that's working. And certainly, I think in every industry, if there's ways of avoiding a prolonged court battle, then that generally is a good thing. And actually mediation techniques and ways that you come to an arrangement that works as well as possible for both people in a kind of smaller, more contained period of time. Yes, absolutely. Definitely don't see why that shouldn't be a way forward. But obviously it's a harder space for legal firms to go in if they are protecting an individual client, because you have to balance that.
And I suppose with amicable, you looked at a very specific kind of area and developed your solution for that. So also taking that approach within commercial or other practice areas as well, just being kind of very niche specific and figuring that out. Who knows, we'll get into it later as to what the next steps are for amicable. But yeah, I hope that answered your question, James, and Nicole as well.
I guess, Geraldine, the other thing I would say though is that I absolutely believe technology can improve consumer law across the board. So if you take the technology side of what we're doing, which is providing user-friendly non-legal language wherever possible, we right from the start have tried to write a lot of blogs, a lot of kind of little interactive tools, etc., that put things in layman's language rather than legal language. And I think that can apply for legal services across the board, especially things like immigration, etc. There's some real opportunities to improve that. And it slightly shocks me if I put my kind of investment hat world on. I think it's something like only 2% of money raised from venture capitalists or investors, etc., to date has gone into consumer legal. So of the money given to legal firms, 98% has gone to firms that are helping corporates rather than helping consumers. Okay. So there's a massive opportunity to make things better for consumers when it comes to legal services by using user accessible technology and trying to focus on ways that the kind of legal spend can be at a minimum and they can get as much value as possible using the kind of technology side.
And you went through, and speaking of investment, a funding round in March of this year. Yeah. Was that the first funding round, or have you?
No, it was the first institutional funding round. So we've had some angel investment going back quite a few years. We've had a few rounds of angel investment where we've worked with some brilliant angels who share our desire to change this market and do things in a different way. But this was the first time we had a kind of a more institutional funder come on board, and that's been good. Again, they're very much in line with what we're trying to do and encouraging us to kind of be able to move forwards.
What, or has that been put to use yet, or what is it being put towards? Is technology one of those areas?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's two real things, and we've kind of touched on both of them. So firstly, improving the technology, and to me that's a constant thing. We will always continue to improve the technology. The particular things we've been focusing on is at the next version of ours. So we have a dashboard when someone's signed up that allows them to manage their whole divorce process. It allows them to enter the information in, see where everything is at each point in time, see the kind of what the financial picture looks like between them and their ex, and we're doing our next iteration of that, and that will be live within the next few weeks. So that's been kind of one of the big technology things with the funding. And also the next stage, we have a co-parenting app, which is around helping people to co-parent better. And we're building out some more functionality on that too. So they're the big technology things. The other part is on the kind of marketing and brand building side that we talked about earlier. So this is reaching out to more people in different ways in order to say, look, this is a different way of doing things. This can give you a better outcome. Why don't you kind of come and talk to us?
Fantastic. And just a reminder to folks, if you do have questions, pop them into the chat and we'll be covering off on them throughout, but towards the end as well. Staying on technology. So a question we often get when we host webinars is, what technology are you using? I know you're using Clio, but could you talk a little bit more about your tech stack and what you're also a technology company as well. So a little bit more about that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so we took a view that we were going to try and use the best products on the market to kind of support our back end, and then back end technology, and then kind of stitch them together in order to make it as seamless as possible. So absolutely right, we use Clio for case management and have done for probably 4 years now. And we have recently done a migration, so we are using HubSpot now for CRM and connecting them together, and then we have a custom website. So our website, it was built on React, although we're moving quite a lot of stuff onto Webflow, which is a newer technology. But we built the whole of the customer facing stuff as custom so that we could make it look and do exactly what we wanted to do. And an important part of that is the ability to integrate with Clio. So where our divorce coaches manage things through Clio, the customer can see the updates almost in real time when things get changed, or when paper stuff moves to the next stage. The customers can see that in real time. And again, what's entered into our website and our journey then is reflected back into Clio. So they're the kind of main things we use. And then I mentioned the co-parenting app earlier. So we built this off the back of our kind of customer demand for either once we've done the divorce or even pre-divorce, they wanted help with their co-parenting. And so it's there to kind of simplify some of the common co-parenting struggles. So it actually starts from how do you share goals, how do you set up your co-parenting on the right foot, and then ongoing communication. So it's got secure messaging, it's got the ability to set a timetable and shared care patterns. So to try and help kind of thousands of customers do that co-parenting. So that again is a custom app for both iOS and Android.
And is that something that clients would purchase as additional, or is it part of the overall package?
No, it's standalone, because actually, although quite a lot of our divorce customers have used that kind of either pre or post their divorce, there are 5 million co-parents in the UK, and so it's quite a different market from the kind of annual divorce market. I did news a couple of weeks ago is more people this year or last year, I think, had children out of wedlock than in wedlock. So co-parenting is in our mind still part of our kind of bigger goal is helping relationships to end in a better way. If you make that decision, your relationship is over, let's do it in a better way, whether that's a co-parenting relationship or a divorce or just a separation if you're not married. And so yeah, it's a slightly different market, but something that people still come to us for.
There was a couple of questions coming in here. One of them I think is asking around the Clio side of things. So I don't think you referenced it, but you referenced it on a previous call. You use Zapier for the Clio integration. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I mentioned kind of stitching things together. So yeah, we use a tool called Zapier for all kinds of things, but in order to make sure that Clio integrates with our reporting tools. So we have a couple of things we use for reporting and dashboarding, and also some of the stuff on our website. If somebody is bought or not, and also to integrate with CRM. So we realized that, yeah, the more we can connect the tools up, the more seamless the experience can be, and obviously the more scalable the company can be. So we've tried to make sure that wherever possible, and this is the kind of continuous improvement point, if ever we see something that's being done manually or could be done in a different way, then that's where we look to use technology to plug that gap. Or if there's ways of improving the customer experience, again, that's where technology can really help and can really plug the gaps.
Fantastic. Thank you for doing that one. Going back to the theme of the series, it's all around growth. When you look back, are there key times in your journey that you would say, yeah, that was a growth milestone? And what would those milestones be?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I mean, it's fairly well publicized. So we actually had a case at the High Court, which was basically the judiciary's way. So it wasn't, we weren't taken to the High Court, but one of our couples that was going through a divorce, they asked for their consent order to be referred to the High Court, which was basically an opportunity for the judiciary to examine the process and what we were doing and confirm that they were happy that it legally was there. Now, all the advice we'd had was that everything was fine, but it was still a as you can imagine, quite an interesting process to go through. We went and did it, and there was then a published judgment, which is available on our website or available generally. And that judgment was very clear to say, yeah, not only what we're doing is legally fine, but it also actually has a real place in society because there should be other options available to people. And so that, yeah, absolutely was a key milestone because it was a real judicial seal of approval. This is okay, this is what you're doing. And then obviously there's the standard things about hitting the first 1,000 customers and 5,000 customers, and we've just actually, I think, up to it'll be about 3,000 customers this year, that kind of milestone. So you can measure all those. But one of the most important things that we measure is word of mouth recommendations. And this again is about growing the knowledge across the UK about what people can do in this area. And we do, we are now at the point where we getting on for 30% of our customers come word of mouth from previous customers.
Wow.
And that's all referrals from effectively partners. And that's obviously not only a very good vote of confidence in the service, but it also shows the kind of traction that the market is getting, of people going, no, I did it this way, this is the way you can do it, etc., and then recommending other people. So that those type of milestones tend to be the things that we focus on. Are we helping more people get a better outcome, and are they then encouraging other people to then do it in a different way?
Yeah, the full cycle, the full client cycle, and referral would always be in there. How are you tracking that right now?
Well, we ask people on checkout. I mean, a lot of our potential customers will have an initial call, and they'll often say, my friends recommended you, so we can capture it at this point. But we also ask everybody when they pay how they found us, and so we know the word of mouth kind of figures from that perspective.
Wow, it's really interesting because it's kind of seen as one of those traditional areas of marketing, but it's also coming back with it's a vengeance, but coming back really strong because with technology and if you think social media platforms, all of that, that's all word of mouth as well. So you know,
yeah, and I personally place a huge amount of kind of faith in things like Trustpilot and Google reviews, and as a company that's been hugely important to us. So we absolutely ask our customers to review us, and we take a lot of pride in our ratings on Trustpilot and Google, because that's much better than me saying this service works. If customers say it worked for me and potential customers can read comments by hundreds of other customers, then that's great.
Fantastic. Well, we're getting very close to our 45 minutes. We did have one other question come in here from Oliver, and it's on the structure of the business. Do you and Kate, are you employing others? How is the company set up in that way?
Yeah, the vast majority of the people who work for us are all employed, so all permanent employees. We did a little bit when we first started of having kind of some associates, but actually when it came to the company culture we wanted to build and came to the way we wanted to work, actually having people who are employed is kind of key to us. What we do though is offer very flexible employment contracts. So a lot of our divorce coaches are not full-time, or even if they are full-time, might do slightly flexible hours. We have quite a lot of people who do kind of 25 hours a week spread over 4 or 5 days. And because the vast majority of the team are remote, and it's kind of a remote first culture, that means that it's more about getting the work done rather than having to be at their desk for a certain time every day. That's quite different from a lot of the historical legal industry way of working as well. So that's proved something that's kind of very popular with employees. We have a lot of parents who don't want to go back to city jobs, for example, and that kind of thing, who want to work with us because they not only love the fact we're kind of helping couples get a good outcome, but also we're working in a very flexible way to do that.
I imagine it also helps to keep the price down then as well for your clients, because you're not paying those astronomical rental prices for, say, offices and things like that. Or
yeah, it wouldn't be possible. We're not structured in, it's kind of circular, isn't it? We charge client, we try and keep the price down for customers, therefore there's no way we're going to spend lots of money on offices. So yeah, we have an office, but it's very small, and we'll say we have a remote first way of working.
Fantastic. So last question I'm going to come to you on is what's next? So 2 questions, and bear with us, folks. I know we said 45 minutes, so probably another 5 minutes or so. But would love to know what you see next for the legal services industry, and then also what's next for Amicable.
So I think there's some really interesting discussions going on in the legal services industry at the moment, and in particularly where unregulated firms sit. So we are in the unregulated space, and we're not the only players. There are people in other parts of law that are doing online consumer businesses. There's a lot in the kind of probate space, so people like Farewell and stuff like that, and that rise in consumer technology services being delivered in a different way, I think is going to continue, and is likely to see a kind of lead to quite a big change in the legal industry, and how that works and what happens for regulation and what's going to happen on that is a really interesting space. From an Amicable perspective, we are looking to continue to grow. We want to continue to expand to make sure we are helping not just those going through divorce and separation, but also those going through separation and co-parenting, and continue to kind of make sure we've got services that offer that cater for kind of all aspects of those markets. And that might mean in some cases working with partners to expand what we do, but that's the type of area that we're looking. But no, continue to grow, continue to get the word out there, and try and make sure we are helping as many people as possible to get through what is a very difficult time in their lives.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Pip. Really appreciate you joining us this morning. And just to round out for everybody, just a reminder that today's session was recorded. We will be sharing the recording in the next 24 hours or so. And once again, yeah, thank you, Pip. Thank you to Regina for joining us from Clio, helping with the chat today. Holly Carpenter as well from Amicable. Thank you for for making it all possible. And finally, thank you to everyone for joining today. We know that everyone's really busy. It's also back to school week. It's end of holidays, and really appreciate you all joining live today. If anyone on the call is interested in participating in our series, do let me know. Just pop me a note. My email's up on screen right now. And let me know if you're interested, and a couple of notes about what your growth story is as well. That would be really helpful. But other than that, just to say have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you next time.